I'm slightly jealous of this desperate loser, but only by a little bit. Welcome, Mere Mortalites, to another round of the book reviews. My name is Kyron, host of the Mere Mortals book reviews that you are here listening to right now, also host of the Mere Mortals and the Value for Value podcast. And this is a podcast that I record for people who are interested in book reviews. Obviously, you've probably got a fascination for them and you want to dive deeper into them. I regularly, on a weekly schedule, for those who are new to here, and well, I probably should explain because we are starting to do a different format. I do a live episode every week on a particular book that I've read, and usually a book review, but sometimes if I haven't particularly read one for that upcoming week, I will do maybe a review of some past books or just some thoughts on reading. And Juan, my co-host, will also add in a book review every now and then, but his is a pre-recorded one. So we'll just let that know once a week, maybe twice a week, depending on the actual week that we're at. You might be asking, okay, when do you actually go live? Well, I am live here on the 16th of October, 2023, 10 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, which is UTC 0, and then plus or minus wherever you are in the world from that. So if you ever do want to join live, that will be the time that I'm recording at for the moment, but that could potentially change in the future. And I probably will have some podcasting 2.0 features added onto this feed, so you'd be able to listen in live, but that's not actually that helpful if you're watching via the video. I do want to explain, I suppose, as well, the type of books that I review on this channel, because once again, I'm starting to do a new format, so I might have some new people coming in. And generally, I like to focus on the older classic type books, so generally something that is 20 years or older, preferably a little bit more, just to allow time to have vetted them. I don't have a set genre per se, so if you go back through some of the back catalogue, I've read, things like sci-fi like Dune. I'll have classics like the Stoics, Cicero, Plato, things like that. I'll have other philosophy. I'll have technological books. I'll have history books. I will have just straight up fiction and, romance. Honestly, whatever it is, I don't really mind, but generally I like to go for older books. The stuff that comes out recently, I don't know. It feels like there's a law. You have to really sort through the trash to find what's good or not for books that have been released in the last 5 years. So just letting you know, that's the type of books that you'll find on this channel. Okay, that's enough talk. Let's get into the actual episode for today. Who are we looking at? So we're looking at Post Office by Charles Bukowski. Relatively small one. It's only got 160 pages here, and it was published when was it? I think it was in like the 1970s, something like that. I do have it written in my notes here. I'll get to that at some point. This was not recommended per se by a friend. I've got a friend Brendan, who I hang out with a lot, and he really likes Charles Bukowski, especially his poems. And this was the first book that I found of him, so I just grabbed it. I've had hit and miss recommendations from him before, so coming into this, I was a little bit like, I know he really enjoys this author, and I've seen some of the poems and quotes, and I think they seem pretty funny or interesting, or he's got definitely something to say. But in terms of the actual book itself, I was a bit, I'm not sure. We'll see how we go. So what you'll find from this, just my initial impression was, it starts off super strong, really, really funny. And outrageous. There's these real quick scene changes in part one where he's basically just delivering the mail, and you see him going from place to place, and it's just ridiculous encounter after the other. And I quite liked the scene changes, and sort of like a young man's wet dream, to be honest, to read about this, because it's basically this post office guy who's like going to these different post offices. He's meeting all these assholes, so he gets to like almost get in fights with people, horny women seducing him / him forcing himself upon them. There's this very weird scene right at the start as well. So you can kind of see it starts off really, it's definitely an engaging book right from the get-go. It really captures you, and you're like, okay, this is something different. I'm interested in here. I want to see what this character has to say and what he'll end up doing, because the start is so strong. So I'll get, I suppose, into a bit of the plot line. We have this character called Henry, also known as Hank Chinaski, who works as a mailman. He lives off of rich women, more or less. So when he can, he's very much a serial seducer. very charismatic kind of playboy type of guy. Although he'll stick with one woman if he finds a good type of thing going on. And so we see when he finds a girl and he doesn't have to work, he will try and live off her if possible. And he starts off as a post office worker, and then he goes and as a mailman working for the post office, then kind of like a serial gambler / bum / loser, then ends up going back to the post office as a clerk and actually putting mail into slots and things like that. And that's what the vast bulk of the book is set upon. It is set up into 6 parts, which probably, I guess, are like 30 pages each part, roughly, but I don't think they had any real distinctions between them. In each one of these as well, there was split up into a couple of chapters, 3, 4, 19, 20, but they're very, very short. You can have a chapter which is less than a page in length. It's only, I don't know what that would be, like 100, 200 words or something. So the actual style of it, I think it doesn't actually have that much coherence to it, which kind of adds to the book as well, because it is a somewhat incoherent book, in at least for this main character, Henry, because man, he is just doing really weird things. He'll have like sex with crazy people. He's eternally hungover. He kind of has this mirth at the pointlessness of life. And he's very short-term pleasure seeking. So whenever he gets an option, he will take the quickest route. So if he, and you see this literally one time when it's raining really heavily and he's driving the mail truck back and he's like, oh, look, I could probably go around all of this area and avoid all this flooding, or I could take the most direct route, flood it, get the mail truck stuck, and then be like, not my problem anymore, goes to the office, just hands the keys and is like, fuck off. So we see with the style of the book, it's very quick to the point, and it's these short jabs that get to the point. There's not a lot of depth of conversations between characters, and there are quite a few characters in the book. It's focused mainly on him, which is somewhat the autobiography of, I guess, the main author himself, Charles Bukowski. We'll get to more of him at the end. But it is this very short and sharp. He'll meet all of these different people. He'll have a shitty boss. He'll have this girlfriend, and then he'll replace her, or she'll kick him out, and then he'll find another one, this sort of deal. It's kind of laconic, I guess, if you wanted to put it. It almost feels like lazy writing. Not that it actually is, but that's the impression you get off from this character. He's just very like, whatever, like, what the fuck, okay, I'll do this thing. And I'll just jump randomly to the point, to any point in the book here, because I think this will give an indication of just what he is like. So jumping here onto page 65. So I had a good sleep for the first time in weeks. I even forgot to set the alarm. I was riding a white horse down Broadway, New York City. I had just been elected mayor. I had this big hard-on, and then somebody threw a hunk of mud at me, and joy shook me. What happened to the birds? Damn the birds. I'm the mayor of New York. I asked you about the birds. All I see is an empty cage. Birds? Birds? What birds? Wake up, damn you. Hard day at the office, dear. You seem snappish. Where are the birds? You said to put them out if they kept me awake. I meant to put them in the back porch or outside, you fool. And then he's basically just getting into this full-on argument with this girl because he let the birds out of the cage and just didn't give a shit about her pets, essentially. So a very that's this kind of character this dude is. He's getting hard-ons. He's like aggrandizing, turns out to be a dream, so he's actually still the desperate loser that he actually is, and gets into a fight with his woman, like all in a single sentence. So that is pretty much what the book is like, and I did well by just choosing a random thing because that is how it is. Okay, let's jump on to the questions and themes, because there was no real plot to it, to be honest. It showed this guy's life over a progression of like 10, 12 years, and he just increasingly gets worse and worse as a drunkard, as not enjoying his job and things like this. And what we see from this is life is hard and will fuck you over. That is basically what this book is about. It's essentially pointless, his view on life, so why fight against us? You could kind of take some philosophical aspects and think, oh, okay, he's seen the pointlessness of life. Where do you go from here? Do you go down the route of more the Stoics, and it's like, life's pointless, but you can battle against this adversity. You can make it worse for yourself. So, retain calm, kind of read some meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Don't let the outside world affect your inner life. You could go down that route. You could go down the perhaps like Kafkaesque, or the I suppose like the ridiculous, paradoxical nature of, okay, well, life is a joke. Let's just treat it with this kind of little bit of humor, and not try and get swept up in the ridiculousness of it all, or even perhaps lean into it. For him, it's I guess you'd say this is kind of his style. That's Bukowski, which is life is pointless, so I'm just going to kind of be hedonistic about it a bit, whilst also bemoaning about just how shit it is. And so the thing I think that really drives his point and changes his philosophy compared to perhaps some of those others I just listed is life is pointless, but there's just enough petty malice to really, really piss you off and make you go crazy, drive you insane. And so we kind of see this with his character, where he has these awful bosses who, they'll be complaining about body odor and really strict enforcing it onto everyone else, but they'll be the ones with the worst body odor. He's got this one who absolutely hates him for no real apparent reason, although you could probably come up with some reasons, like he's not happy, he's not a real go-getter. So perhaps this is why they dislike him. The bureaucracy of the post office, I fully am on board with this. I hate bureaucracy to a to a point as well, where it is just absolutely maddening. And so we kind of see this where it's just like, okay, how does he handle these interactions? And so there's this thing that he basically has to do for the post office, which is he needs to score a 95 out of 100 in throwing these cards into slots. And basically you have to memorize, okay, 85 goes into, Westphalia Street, 73 goes onto Robertson Street, but if it's like a 75 at -A, then it should go to this different place. And you have to memorize all of these things. And they're called what are they called? The schemes. Got to study these schemes. And so if he doesn't do this, he's going to get fired. And so we're jumping into here where he's talking with the doctor, because he's basically going insane. So he says, somebody has to stick that letter. So we have to study these scheme sheets after working 12 hours a night. And I can't pick the sheet up. If I do, it falls from my hand. You can't study these schemes? No. And I have to throw 100 cards in a glass cage in 8 minutes to at least an accuracy of 95%, or I'm out. And I need the job. Why can't you study these schemes? That's why I'm here, to ask you. I must be crazy, but there are all these streets, and they all break in different ways. Here, look. And I would hand him the 6-page scheme, stapled together at the top, small print on both sides. He would flip through the pages. And you're supposed to memorize all this? Yes, doctor. Well, my boy, handing the sheets back, you're not crazy for not wanting to study this. I'd be more apt to say that you were crazy if you wanted to study this. That'll be $25. So I analyzed myself and kept the money. So it's pretty much all of these things. Like every time he tries to go for help, he just gets shafted over. Like the doctor's like, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, no, pay me some money. And so we see all of these things where it's just like, okay, he's struggling so much. Every chance, like how does he deal with all of these things? So his approach is very much to suppress the rage. So not go on an insane killing spree or anything like that. Be wily sometimes. So he actually kind of cheats the system by saying like, oh, you're actually going to fire me maybe, so I shouldn't have to do the scheme. So he gets a break from that. And then when it actually comes to like the critical point of like, no, you actually have to do the schemes now. He memorizes it all through like orgies and girlfriends. So he's like, this girl is fucking this guy. She had an orgy on number 8 with this guy called Robertson. And so this is how he memorizes it in the end. Or be crazy, or play dumb, or act like a fool, or sweet talk. I actually really like the character. He's a really fun character. It's not hard to fall in love with him and be on his side and be like, yeah, okay, Hank, he's a bit of a lazy piece of shit, but he's a good guy at the end. He's kind of funny. He does these wacky things. He's got a bit of cheek to him, and so you're kind of rooting for him. But what you see is like he just keeps getting into these worse and worse situations. And essentially like his life sucks. And so at the start of the book, you might say, okay, he's kind of in a shitty job, but he's got a girlfriend, he's got a house, he's paying rent, seems to be doing okay. But as it progresses on, you see him just diving deeper into this. Okay, well, now he's gambling and drinking a lot, and he's being eternally hungover, and he's actually making a lot of decisions which are worse for him. So, for example, one of the scenes, he's got this good job as like an art in this art gallery, not much work, just has to chill out, minimal hours per day. But he's got this girl who's, I think he describes her as like a young bimbo. So he's 36 at the time and she's 23. She's heiress to a wealthy fortune, and so he's basically staying with her just for the money. And she's like a nymphomaniac, which he also enjoys / hates because her sex drive is way higher than his. And you see, like, she's like, no, we have to get better jobs to prove to my family, like, that we can be independent. And he doesn't want to, but he's like, all right, whatever, I'll join the post office again. And this is where he joins that 12-hour back-breaking, standing up all day, shitty bosses type of work when he had a good job. And it's like, well, okay, what are you doing, man? Like, you're intentionally deciding to go into a shitter situation. Like, there's no real benefit from this. He very much just gets into, and it seems like his main problem isn't that he lacks a good attitude for life. It's not that he's not smart enough or that there's any like real problem with him or even with the system that he's in. It's more that he's kind of unwilling to experiment. When he gets stuck down on a path, he just follows it, and he doesn't have this ability to introspect and be like, okay, well, I'm doing this, I'm sticking with this job to please this girl, but it's killing me, and this is then making my relationship with her worse, so I'm probably not even going to be able to stay with her long term, which, yes, indeed happens. She dumps him because he turns into like this craggly old just dude who's complaining about his shit life. Okay, well, maybe I shouldn't do that, and I should stay at this old job, and then I have to decide, is she going to stay with me or not? If she doesn't want to, that's fine. At least I'm not ruining my life to try and make a better life. That's kind of what he does. He ruins his life to try and get a better life. He works his ass off so to try and be lazy when instead he could just be lazy. So he kind of misses the point of doing this, and then he follows the grain of working in a job he hates, and then just releases through absolute chaos of gambling, getting into fights. He's an emotional character. He's very much like hard on his sleeve. It's if a bad thing happens to him, he expresses it straight away. If he's happy, he's happy in that moment. So he's very much a living in the moment, which is nice, good for him. But he lacks that delayed gratification as well, which you can see. Oh, this is going to end up in some bad situations for him. Which it I suppose gets onto the author himself, Charles Bukowski. He had a rough life, man. Just looking at his kind of backstory, he was German born, lived in the USA during the Great Depression and then World War II. So having a German accent and living in the States, not a great place to be. So a lot of suspicion. I'm sure there was all sorts of profiling and just negative interactions that would have came from that. You'd describe him as a troubled genius. He was alcoholic, abused physically when he was young by his father, sexist, love drunk, and did indeed do most of the things that happened in this book. He did indeed work in a post office and was writing this actually at the rather old age of 51. So this was published in 1971. So he actually sort of became famous or became well known as a writer well into the later years of his life. And if you've been looking at any of the photos on the screen, like basically he's always got a cigarette or a drink in his hand. So very much the character in this book, it was very much him. And so he lived his works, I guess you could say, which is what adds to this authenticity to the book. This was him, and probably a lot of the scenes from this and characters were modeled after real people that he interacted with. And when you're this kind of crazy, wacky, zany character, you attract these type of people in real life. And so I'm sure we've all met people in our lives who there are some people who just kind of are destined for trouble. They get into these ridiculous situations. And then there's the more by the book, the more standard life, I guess you could put it that way. So yeah, very, very interesting, part of the Beat generation. So if you wanted more books like this, something like On the Road by Jack Kerouac, which I've reviewed on this channel before, is worth going back to get a feel of that. So yeah, I suppose jumping onto my summary, similar books, recommendations. Ultimately, I was a little bit let down from this. So on a meta level, the book succeeded. It was a book about a guy who struggled and had a kind of downhill life, very zany, back and forth, kind of hard to get a feel for what the book's about and what he is about. Well, that's how this book came across, which was nice. It really seemed to peter out as Hank got more depressed and slob-like. So the first half of the book was really fun to read because, yeah, he was, as I mentioned right at the start, like, I'm kind of jealous of him. It's this guy who's just, he doesn't give a fuck. Like, he'll fuck this random chick in this house, and then he'll be late for work. He's got this shit ass boss, so he's like fighting against the system. And then he finds this girl and goes to her hometown and lives like a king for a bit. He's kind of all over the shop, and as a young man, it's probably like, oh my god, wet dream. This is the life to live. What you see though when he keeps following this past is he didn't necessarily hate himself. There was not this internal rage against himself and judging himself, but he hated where he was. And they're kind of two sides of the same coin, because your decisions put you where you are in life. So what we see is, as he goes on, the book becomes a bit more depressing, gets a bit more monotonous, and just, to be honest, rather strange. The ending of this was very strange, which was you just get these couple of, I suppose, pictures, or it's like, here we go. The Post Office Department, subject, notice of decision to Henry Chinaski. And then this letter will refer to address to you, dated blah, 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 about your suspension. And you get 3 or 4 of these in a row, which is basically just the note showing, okay, he's getting suspended / fired. It's just a very random way to end. And then the last parts of the book are him just going on an absolute bender and almost dying, essentially, sort of deal. So every escape into the gambling and sordidry of his life, it kind of became duller. It kind of became more depressing. You're just looking at him and going like, oh man, sure, that was kind of funny and interesting when you're in your early 20s, or maybe even late 20s, maybe even early 30s, but now he's getting into like the late 30s, now into the early 40s, and it's just like, oh, okay, it's kind of humorous and interesting when you're younger, but after decades of that, like, dude, you can't. It's kind of, you're basically a loser now, and it's rather depressing. And that's how the book went, and it actually, yeah, was kind of depressing to read. You're like, okay, this is interesting, but man, this dude's really starting to struggle. So overall, I gave Post Office by Charles Bukowski a 4 out of 10. I just didn't enjoy it that much. If I'd stopped midway through, it had just continued like the midway through, I probably would have given it a bit better. But for me, it I don't know, it lost its luster, I guess. And I would actually be really interested for maybe a female perspective of this book, because I think so much of this is appealing to a young man. It's against the system. He doesn't give a fuck. Like, screw the system, screw all this bureaucracy. I hate this shit. Get to like have sex with women. I'm going to go drink. I'm going to take drugs. I'm going to get into fights. I'm going to, be charming and witty and all of these sorts of things. I'd really love to know a female perspective on this, and if they connected with this character, because there's a part of me as a man, which is, oh man, that seems really fun. But it's only a little bit, because as you witness, you go, oh, okay, nah, I don't want to be like that dude. That seems rather depressing, The things you can do when you're in your early 20s, if you see a 6-year-old doing that, yeah, it's a bit, yeah, it's not a great look. So it kind of reminded me in The Dice Man by George Cockcroft as well. A similar sort of thing where it's you kind of you feel this little bit of jealousy towards them because they can do all of these things which you can't do. But when you look at their life as the book goes on, it just gets worse and worse. So yeah, very, very interesting book in that respect, but also a little bit sad. So I'm going to go on to the support section. So for those who don't know, this is a value for value podcast. You're never going to hear any ads nor sponsorships in this. I'm never going to get on someone or talk about a book because someone's asking me or paying me to. Nope. I only read books because I find them interesting and I want to go after it. So that means that I just have to ask for your support at home to help support this show. If you get some value from this, I just ask that you return it. And if you get a lot of value, please return a lot of value. There's many different ways you can do this. I'll talk about that shortly, but this is the Boostagram Lounge. So I want to thank the one and only person from this week, and this is Ashley Glenday, who has been streaming for a bit, but had never sent in a message or a Boostagram before. So this is actually rather exciting. So thank you, Ashley. And he says, I'm assuming it's a he. I did a quick bit of research and I'm pretty sure, but he says, podcast guru FTW for the win. Greetings from a fellow Aussie. And this was for the book review I'm pretty sure I did last week. And this was a 2 kilobytes boost sent in, 2048. From Ashley Glenday. Thank you so much, my friend. Very, very much appreciated. I also do have a PayPal link that was sent through an audio through our Podcasting 2.0 app, where you can send a message directly within the app with a payment, as Ashley has done just here, with a number that means something to you. Obviously, is a fan of 2 kilobytes, so that's really cool. I do appreciate that, and if I do read 1984, send in a 1984 boost. If you've got a book or a number that's important to you, I'd really love to see that and appreciate that. And I never knew he was an Aussie. Awesome, thank you so much, my friend. I'm actually probably going to read a couple of Aussie books soon as well, so maybe that'll be enjoyable to you. So yeah, this is the section just to thank Ashley for sending in that support. There's a lot of effort that goes into this: microphones, video, cameras, laptops, all sorts of things, hosting fees. So it does make a big difference to receive some support like this to pay the bills, essentially. I do want to just give another mention as well to LS Stack. They didn't provide support, but they provided something else which was valuable, which was a comment on one of the book reviews. So this was on the YouTube, and this was for the Turn of the Papers and the Turn of the Screw and the Aspen Papers by Henry James, that book review. And they say, really insightful review, so helpful for my study. Thank you. Hey, I do this for you guys because I really love these books. I love talking about them, and I hope that I can provide some insights or a perspective that you might not have come to yourself. So this is kind of the point of this channel, to do things like that. So yeah, very much appreciated. Thank you for that. If you want to be like Ashley Glenday or Ellis Duck didn't provide a monetary support. So if you want to be like Ashley, go to meremortalspodcast.com/support. And all the ways, the explanations of how you can support are there. There's also some quick and easy links in the show notes. So very much appreciated for sending in some support via that way. And yeah, I'll get on to my last section here, which is the value for value. So there's many ways that you can help support this show: time, talent, and treasure. Time is just by simply sharing it on with someone or joining in on the live aspect. If you come join our Discord, I'll see it there. I do plan to set up a live chat at some point, but at the moment you can go there and check it out. Sharing the show with a friend, saying if you've got any books or anything like that, who loves books, very much appreciated. If you would like to do a book club with me, I'd love to know that, because that is something that I could set up, but I do. It would be useful to know if someone actually wants to do it with me. That would be super, super cool. Talent, give me some book recommendations. If you think I like this or I didn't like this, I would love to know your thoughts on the book as well. So please give me some thoughts on that. I'll read these out on the show while I have the ability to do that, because I don't have a whole lot of section in that content in that Boostagram Lounge at the moment. So very much, want to hear your thoughts on all of these books. I do these to start a conversation, I suppose. And then treasure, much as we've seen with Ashley and how you could easily do with the PayPal as well. So supporting the show in that manner really, really does matter. And please choose an amount that is worthwhile to you. And I get it. I myself have listened to some creators in the past before, and it's like I've watched hundreds of videos and I've still been like, I don't really want to support. I haven't got that much. At some point, I think you will go, look, I've gotten a lot of value from this. Karen keeps asking for it. I'm just going to provide that back. So I am going to keep mentioning, repeating this, asking. And one day you'll be like me and support those creators who have helped you in some meaningful manner. And, I just got to keep doing this long term until we get to that point. So very, very much appreciated for when you do that. And if you know someone who has been listening to a long time as well and hasn't supported the show, tell them, hey, freaking do it. Karen's doing some cool stuff here and he needs your support. So we'll leave it at there for today. Thank you very much. I can give you a little sneak peek for what's coming up next week. I will be doing On Government by Cicero. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I'm not too sure. So we'll have a little bit of Roman literature coming your way, and also a sneak peek. It's rather dry. It's rather dry, but I'll be able to explain it in a way that makes it fun for you. So we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining in, for tuning in. And until the next time, ciao for now. Karen out.